Well, let's talk about the plan. One of the things I read about was that you've divided the city into grids so that you can see exactly where crime occurs and focus on those grids. And that you've learned in Dallas that only 5% of the grids produce a vast majority of the violent crime. So, how does your grid system work in terms of how do you divide up the city and then how do you attack it once you've figured that out?
Yeah, well, let me just start off by saying I think any police department when it deals with violent crime, and that's why we have three pieces of this crime plan. We look at ourselves as the fever reducer. We're the Advil, we're the Tylenol you take to reduce a fever. In this case, violent crime. We are not a cure to the illness of the underlying illness, and it's important for us to remember that. And that's why we work so collaboratively with our community in our groups and our nonprofits and things of that nature. But I'll say we divided the city of Dallas into about 101,000 grids. And we impact about 50, or at presently, we're impacting about 64 grids in our city. Our grids and our grid work, in working with our criminologists from the University of Texas San Antonio's Dr. Mike Smith and Rob Tillier, what we discovered again is that small number of grids is responsible for a very large percent of our violent crime. And so by reducing those grids, we're able to reduce violent crime citywide. To become a grid in the city of Dallas, you have to have led the city in incidents in the past 60 days in murder, aggravated assault, or aggravated robbery. And so we treat those areas throughout the city in two ways, with being present and actually having officers just being visible in those areas. Our grids, one of the I guess you would call it unique or what have you, is when we talk about hotspots and grids. The one thing I've learned in working with my criminologists, it's not the hotspot itself; there's a hotspot within the hotspot. So our grids are about 330 by 330 feet, a little larger than a football field. So we consider that the epicenter of the hotspot. And so one, visibility, and two, using intelligence-led policing to root out the criminal element that lies in those grids. And we've seen in the last, since we've started the crime plan, we've reduced violent crime in those grids anywhere from 40 to 60%, and that has also helped then reduce the incidents that happen citywide when it comes to violent crime. Obviously, a city's number one tell of violent crime, and I know we talk about it often, and I know that murders and homicides get a lot, obviously, the attention. One life is too many. There was no question about it. But I think as police chiefs, what we look is the trend in gun-related aggravated assault and those incidents, and making sure that by reducing incidents, that will lead you to less victims. And so, again, that's the primary focus of our grid work. Having said that, understanding and recognizing that we are a fever reducer, that's where the other parts of the crime plan come in. But I'll say, there is no crime plan that's going to work. There is nothing that will work in a city if the morale of your officers isn't high. If your officers don't feel valued, if they don't feel appreciated, and if they don't feel, quite frankly, that you don't care about their wellness or well-being, or the fact that they want to be police officers, nothing's going to work. And so oftentimes I tell individuals to make sure you have a finger on the pulse of the morale of your department before you launch something, because without that, it's going to lead to failure.